Hey, it's Sean from Open Pantry Co, and this is the Prep List. This is the last episode in the Money series, and I want to bring it back to something simple. Because over the last 3 episodes, we've covered a lot of ground. Reading your numbers as signals, the difference between revenue and real return, and what pressure reveals about your decisions. And all of that comes back to one thing: clarity. Not more data, not more software, not a different accountant. Clarity. When you understand your numbers, like really understand them, money stops being a source of anxiety and starts being a tool for decision making. And that changes everything about how you lead. The trend I want to close with is this. Financial stress in hospitality is rarely about the numbers themselves. It's about the uncertainty around them. When operators don't know their numbers clearly, every decision carries more weight than it needs to. Should we hire someone? I'm not sure we can afford it. Should we change the menu? I don't know what that's going to cost us. Should we open another day? I don't know if the margin is there for that. That constant low-level uncertainty is exhausting, and it makes operators cautious in ways that actually hold the business back. The venues we see performing consistently well, not just financially but operationally, aren't necessarily the most profitable, but they are the most clear. They know what their numbers mean, they know what's working and what isn't, and they make decisions from a position of understanding rather than anxiety. Financial clarity is a leadership advantage, and it's available to any operator willing to sit with their numbers honestly. Here's the tool for this final episode, and it's the simplest one of the series. One question, no spreadsheet required. If I had to describe the financial health of my venue in one sentence right now, what would I say? Not your revenue, not your costs, not your projections, the health. If you can answer that clearly, that's great. That's the foundation. But if you struggle to answer it, if it comes out vague or qualified or anxious, that's useful information too. Because the gap between where you are and being able to answer that question clearly, that's the work. Not more reports, not more data, just clarity about what the numbers you already have are telling you. The most significant shift we see with operators who get this right isn't in their P&L. It's how they carry themselves in their business. When you know your numbers, like really know them, you make faster decisions. You have better conversations with your team about what's possible. You stop second guessing things that should be straightforward. We work with one operator who describes himself as financially anxious in their own words, not because the business was in trouble, but because they genuinely didn't understand what the numbers meant. We didn't change the numbers, we changed how they read them. And then 3 months later, they'd made 2 decisions that they'd been avoiding for over a year. Not because they suddenly had more money, because they finally understood what they had. That's what clarity does. It makes the decisions obvious, even when they're hard. Here's the question to close out the series with. What would we do differently if we were completely clear on our financial position? Ask yourself first, then ask your team. The answers will tell you exactly where to focus next. Money is one of our 8 ingredients we use to assess the health of a venue. And like all the ingredients, it doesn't operate in isolation. Your financial health reflects your brand decisions, your team culture, your operational discipline, and your leadership. It's all connected. Which is why we don't look at money in a pantry review as a standalone problem. We look at it as part of a whole picture because that's the only way to understand what's actually going on in your business. If that kind of review sounds like something worth doing, our email's in the show notes of this podcast. And that's the Money series done. Thanks so much for listening to this series of Money. And as always, we'll see you next time for the Prep List, where we talk about all things location.